Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're exploring one of the critical ASP.NET vulnerabilities, ViewState insecure deserialization attack. And I'll be honest, I couldn't get the final RCE to trigger. I've spent hours trying to get this exploit working, debugging, researching, but I've hit a wall that I just couldn't crack. But stick around because what we'll learn about this attack process and defense mechanism is incredibly valuable. So in this video, I'm going to show you the complete setup for this vulnerability, walk you through exactly how the attack should work. During one of my recent pen tests, I discovered this vulnerability and I was able to get the RCE on the underlying system. So I'll walk you through exactly how the attack works, and I'll also show you where it all fell apart in this lab and explain why this matters for both attackers and defenders. I went through multiple blogs, articles, write-ups during my research for this vulnerability, and also there are multiple scenarios of this vulnerability. I couldn't cover all of those in this video, but I've linked them down. You can definitely read it from there. So without further delay, let's get started. ASP.NET has a programming model called web forms. This is a bit old and is now obsolete. Developers use ASP.NET MVC or ASP.NET web pages or ASP.NET core applications in place of web forms. But there are many legacy websites which still uses web forms, and that is where this vulnerability still lies, as they uses something called a view state, which is used to store the current state of the web page. Here, I've created a flow diagram for you to understand what view state actually is. We'll be using shopping cart analogy to understand it. Here is the browser and the server. So first of all, let's suppose in an application you have added some products into your cart. Now ViewState will store this information into a hidden input field named as underscore underscore ViewState. Let's say your cart looks something like this. Now ASP.NET will convert this object into a serialized format. Then this ViewState value gets passed onto the server, and then the server retrieves the original form of this object, and then based on the response it received, it performs the further actions. So that is how ViewState works. Now let's see how this value is formed and how this is securely transmitted from your browser to the server. For explaining this, I've created this flowchart. Now let's dive into it. So first of all, the page loads and then comes the generation phase. In this, all the data and controls is being collected. That is data in terms of your cart information and controls in terms of any operations that you want to perform with the data. Now all this data and controls are all together stored into an object graph. Now this object graph is being sent further for serialization into a loss formatter format. In order to perform this, ASP.NET uses object state formatter class. Basically, this class performs serialization and deserialization in ASP.NET and creates a binary blob. Then this binary format is then being sent forward for encryption. Now, for the encryption, it uses a decryption key and an algorithm like AES, or it could be triple DES or DES or something. Now, this we can define into a file called web.config, which I'll show you when we do our practicals. So, by using this algorithm and the key, it encrypts the binary format and then sends the encrypted format for base 64 encoding. After this, the ViewState blob is created and it is stored in that hidden input field called underscore underscore ViewState. Then this ViewState blob is being sent forward to compute the MAC, that is message authentication code. It is basically calculating the hash value of the ViewState blob and the validation key, which is another key which we can define along with the decryption key and the algorithm which will be used for encryption. So here also you can use other algorithms like SHA1, HMAC SHA1, or any others. Basically, ASP.NET computes MAC to make sure that the view state variable is not being tampered with while transmission from browser to the server. Let's see how. Client generates a postback request, that is, browser sends the view state and the view state MAC value to the server. Then comes the validation phase, which is basically at the server side. Now server again computes the MAC with the received view state and the validation key. Same as here, the view state and the validation key. So then the values are being compared. And if it matches, then the decryption key deserializes the view state value and then it is being rendered. And if it fails, then we get an error saying validation of view state MAC failed. And this is the exact error that we've been receiving into our lab, which we'll look at. which tells that there is something wrong with your machine key. And by machine key, I mean decryption key and validation key. Now, what an attacker does is they try to tamper the variable view state. And this can only be done if an attacker have the decryption key and the validation key, and also the algorithms that are being used. So now the question is, how do they achieve this information? So what happens is oftentimes developers leave those informations onto some open source code bases like GitHub or GitLab, or they hard code those informations somewhere where it is accessible publicly, or they use this decryption key and validation key which are available publicly. Now let's suppose they were facing some implementation challenges while development, and for resolving it they've referred to some stack overflow queries where the author provided a solution using the decryption key or validation key that they have used. Now the developer also used those keys into their program. For figuring out these informations, attacker uses some brute forcing tools whose primary task is to use a word list which has been created from these open source leaks, and then use those keys to brute force this serialization algorithm, then identify the decryption key and the validation key for the algorithm, and then proceed with creating the view state object, which then leads to a successful RCE. So let's go into the practical section then. I'll be using this Windows 10 operating system, so you can set up this VirtualBox environment into your system also. You can see all the specs here, and you can also assign it accordingly. So for this setup, you will be needing Visual Studio. You can also do it normally without installing Visual Studio, but then you will have to implement the IIS server and everything by yourself, like the hosting and other things. But if you install Visual Studio, then you will get it all inbuilt. So if you install Visual Studio, then you will get two things. First is Visual Studio, that is the editor itself, and then the Visual Studio installer. If you open it, you will get this. Here, you can install some packages and frameworks which is required for our environment. Click on Modify. After you install the Visual Studio, you will get this window by default. So just make sure that you have this .NET Framework projects and item templates, because this is required for using the web forms, which is now not being used widely, because if you don't install it, then you will not be getting the feature for creating web forms. After that, you will have to download it, which you will get an option here, something called as download all and then install. I already have it downloaded, so I'll be closing it. Now I'll open Visual Studio. I'll create a new project. Here search for web forms, and here you can see the framework. So this framework, you won't get it here if you don't install that package in the installer. So make sure to install that. Click on it, and here you can set the project name. I'll call it ViewState Realization. After that, just create it. Here, click on web forms, and then here you can see the web forms is you're getting, and there are these new ones, the MVC, that is the model view controller, and the web APIs, which are used to create .NET APIs and all. Click on create. Now it will take some time. So now our project is created. In the Solution Explorer, you can find all the folders and files. It could be possible that when you install it, you don't see this tab here. So don't panic, just go to the view here, and here you can see this Solution Explorer. Once you click on it, it will open up here, and then just click on this pin option. So now let's take a look at this web config. So this is the file. Now here you will see that we don't see any sort of machine keys or anything here, right? It doesn't come here by default. We'll have to import it. Now from where we will import these machine keys? So for that, we need to create a server which provides us those keys, an IIS server. So that particular server will validate everything that we went through in the flow diagram. Open the IIS manager, and then here you can see you have Windows and Windows box. Click on it, and then you will see sites. Again open it, and here is the default website. Here you can see I have a machine key. If you click on it, here are the machine keys. The validation method, the encryption method, which is also the decryption method, you can say, then the validation key, and then the decryption key. Okay, let's go a step back. Now here, sometimes it could be possible that you won't find this machine key. So in that case, you will need to enable some options in order to get it. So for that, in control panel, you will find turn Windows features on or off. Click on it, and there you will see Internet Information Services or IIS, and make sure that you have these options enabled. And if you open it, then here you can see all the IIS management consoles and everything. And in the World Wide Service, you have this. So just make sure that these options are enabled. If those are enabled, then you will be able to see this machine key here. So now let's again open the machine. When you open this manager for the first time, you will see that these options are enabled, that it will be something like this. Then just uncheck it, create on generate keys, and then you will be able to retrieve the machine keys. And here in the encryption method also, just put AES. You need to mention these methods as we will use this in the web config file. Then click on apply. See, the changes have been successfully saved. And sometimes you will also see that it doesn't get saved here. You don't have permission to edit these keys. So in that case, go to default website, and in the edit permissions, in the security tab, just click on this creator owner, and then just click on OK or apply, like whatever it is there. And then after this, you will be able to generate and edit keys. Now let's import the machine keys in the web config file. Come under HTTP runtime, and before pages, insert this tag machine key, click on enter, and type validation key is equals to, copy the validation key from here. Here you can see it's 128 characters, that is 128 bytes. Then decryption key equal to, copy the decryption key, paste it, and then the validation algorithm we need to mention here. So in our case it's SHA1. So these are all the validation algorithms that is available. And then the decryption, ours is AES. We can save it now. Now let's see how our application looks. Okay, getting some error here. So let's go into the web config, and it will be okay. Validation key and decryption key. The K will be capital, so that's why we're receiving this error. Now you can see no issues found. Let the site load. Okay, close it and restart it. Again, click on this run icon. Now our application is successfully up and running. If I open the source code, here you can also see that the view state parameters and everything are there. And we also have the view state generator. If ASP.NET is a bit older, mine is currently 4.7 or 4.8, I guess, 4.7. But if the versions are lower than 4.5, then we can also use this view state generator to create the payload. So you can also look into it. I'll link all the blogs and articles in the description. Now let's create a form with which we can submit these values. Let's create another page for it. So right click on this, and here you can see add, click on it, and here you can see web forms. I want to call it exploit page. Okay, now we have the form. Inside it, just add a button. The button is now created. Now I need to rebuild the application. Yes. So rebuild is complete now. Now I can start the application again. Let's go to our page. Now we have a button. If I show you the network tab, well, first let's check if we have the view state here. So yeah, here you can see also the generator. Now let's look at the network tab and press on click me. Here you can see we're getting a successful request. Our request is now reaching to the server. Since we didn't allocated any action on clicking the button, so we're not getting any response back. Now let's see how we can use the YSO serialize tool for tempering the ViewState variable. So for this, you need to download the tool from a GitHub repo. Just type YSO serial.net GitHub, press enter. Here you can see this is the official repository. Here, if you go to the release, this is the zip file that you can download. I already have it downloaded. I'll just show you. So here you can see YSO serial. You need to unzip it, and then you will find these all modules here. And this is the exe file that we'll be using to create the payload, and also install Python. As for this exploit, what we'll do is we'll create a payload which will generate a callback request to our Python server. Then go to this folder inside release, open command prompt here, and in here you can use this YSO serial tool. So let's use the command. Here you can see we have the payload. This payload is URL encoded. So let's decode it first. Paste the payload here, decode or decoded payload. So copy it. Now here we've provided our attacker server on localhost port 8081. Let's enable that. For that I'll open another CMD instance. Let's type python-m http server 8081. Now let's try for the exploit. Go here inside the ASP.NET, just replace this value with the payload. Now just press on click me. So here you can see the error. Validation of ViewState Mac failed if this application is hosted by a web farm or cluster. The same error that I've showed you in the flowchart. Now I've tried multiple things. I've reconfigured the machine key and every other possible solution that I could think of, but still nothing works. I don't know why. So that is one of the reason I've called this a failed lab. Now, if this was a successful exploit, then you'd have received a callback onto your attacker server, and that way you could then further proceed with the exploit ahead. For this error, I've also raised a query on Stack Overflow, so please feel free to contribute if you have any solution over there. I'll just show it to you once. Before that, I have another thing to discuss. A question might arise like, why do we use static key here? Why not use an automatically generated key? That way it will be secured, obviously. But think it this way. The data that is being serialized and encrypted, it will be sent to multiple servers or multiple systems. Let's say system A sent it to system B, now system B sent it to system C. Now for that instance, let's say encryption is being performed on system A. Now system B needs to decrypt it in order to process the data. So for that, if there is a dynamic key that is being generated every time, then it is not possible for any other system to decrypt this value. So for that reason, we use static key, and this key is being also set up in server B or server C so that whenever the data is being received by any other server, they can also decrypt it and they can also process it further. So always make sure to implement CI/CD checks, which doesn't let any sort of validation key or decryption key to pass through, and don't use publicly available keys, as that is not secure at all. And Microsoft has also provided a list of publicly available keys that were found, and you can also check if your organization is using any sort of public key which is out there, and if so, then immediately remove it. You can check that onto this GitHub repo here. Here you can see the CSV file that Microsoft has provided. Copy it, open it in a new tab. And here you can see these are all the hashed values of the validation key and decryption key. So what you can do is you can copy your validation key and the decryption key, and you can generate its hash value, and then you can just process it, or you can simply just run the script and you will be able to figure out if your key is already out there or is it secure. Now, I'll also show you the Stack Overflow question that I've raised, so you can also contribute over there, help me figure out what I am doing wrong. So here is the question. So please go through it once and let me know if you have any clue what I've did wrong and what could be the issue so that I can fix this lab and maybe post the exploit again. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching and please share it with someone who might need it, even though it's a failed exploit, but I guess the concept is pretty much clear. And if not, if you have any doubts, please let me know. I'll definitely resolve it. And also, I'll share all the related links in the blog or in the description of this video. So check it out, and I definitely ask you to go through all those blogs and articles, which are really good write-ups by Mendiant and other top organizations, where they tell their pen test journey and how they figured out this key through recon. So from there also you'll be able to learn a lot. So thank you again for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe the channel, and I'll see you again.